Well, good morning and welcome to the November edition of Next Steps, our leadership development series that Peel and Holland, Journey Church, and Heartland Worship Center put on together. So we appreciate you joining us this morning. We're awfully excited about this morning's topic of navigating change, leading through the dip. This is actually a follow-up to one of the sessions at GLS that Craig Rochelle did on leading through the dip, and it came back as one of the more popular sessions from GLS this year. So the way we normally do Next Steps is we like to take a popular session and unpack it a little deeper with some of our local leaders, and that's what we're doing here today. So I want to just say, Mike and Trey, it's great to have you all with us today. We appreciate it very much. We've got Cui Liu with Cui Liu Designs. She is the CEO and founder, and we have Mike Daniel of Sportable Scoreboards with us today. And I'm going to ask them to just give a brief introduction. You know, 2020 has certainly been a year of change and a challenging year. And when we talk about the navigating change and leading through the dip, I think both of you all have seen some significant dip as well. And maybe through your introductions, just give a little context for our audience about some of the challenges you face. So,
sure.
Trey, we'll let you lead us off.
Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction. My name is Cui Liu, founder and CEO of Cui Liu Designs out of Murray, Kentucky. We are a manufacturer, wholesaler, and importer of home furnishing. Our customers are your mass retailers across the U.S., people like TJ Maxx, Home Goods, at-home stores, Ross stores, etc. So we sell to the brick and mortar stores.
Okay, and my name is Mike Daniel, and Roy, again, thank you for the invitation as well. I'm the CEO out at Sportable Scoreboards, which is a local company. We market, manufacture athletic scoreboards and ship those scoreboards throughout the country. So think baseball parks, high school sporting events, basketball, football, etc. So yeah, to say that 2020 has been a year of change is putting it very kindly. You know, back early, we had a great January. Our company had a very good 2019, had a really good January, off to a good start. February was good, and we were into a good March. And I remember speaking with one of the folks on our executive team, and that's when the universities started to, sort of the dominoes started to fall, and we heard universities weren't coming back after spring break and so forth. And we primarily sell in the youth market, so high school and youth sports is really where we are. And in this conversation with someone in our office, I said, you know, this is going to be a game changer for us if this gets into our market. And that was about 2 weeks, or no, probably less than a week later, high school started to close throughout the country. And so it's, yes, it's been a tough year on a number of fronts, and but no pretense that we've got this mastered as far as leading through the dip. There's no playbook on this, but
sure.
We are making progress together.
So for context, Trey, you know, you mentioned furniture,
yes.
Wholesaler. I would assume that things changed fairly dramatically for your organization?
Yes, definitely. 2020 has definitely been very, very unpredictable and not what we projected. You know, at the beginning of the year, we set goals really ambitiously because we had a really great 2018, 2019. And our business was affected even in January because majority of our products are manufactured overseas. So the overseas already had the whole COVID happening over there. So production was shut down. So a lot of our order had to be delayed. Then when the situation got a little bit under control over there, production's coming back, our customers are increasing their orders for us in March, beginning of March and February, end of February. And then second week of March, our business went from 2 times of what it was last year to 0 in 1 week.
Basically overnight.
Overnight, yes, exactly. And all of our orders that we have booked through August of the 2020 were canceled. So it was definitely a very scary moment for me and for our business.
So all of 20 has really been tough
Yes.
From the supply side at first,
Yes,
and
then the customer
side dramatically stopping. Mike, you mentioned youth sports.
Yes.
Is your specialty.
Yes.
I'm assuming that middle of March, high school stops, and then all of a sudden, basically no sporting activities
Correct.
for 3 months had to have had an impact on your
Absolutely.
organization.
And Trey, I didn't think about the supply chain from your standpoint. We did have a very good January, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
We had a great January. February was good, and we were in the midst of a good March. And then it was March the 27th was the mandate from the governor relative to closures. And so we closed our facility on, it was a Friday, March the 27th.
Not that day was seared in your brain at
No,
all, right?
no. I think it was maybe 10 p.m. the night before.
Right.
That's when that went into effect. But at any rate, we did not reopen our facility, our manufacturing facility, until the first week of May. And so we had the majority of our folks that are in sales or marketing side were working, and other support roles were working from home, working remotely, but our production team was not there. If we don't, and if we are not manufacturing, we're not shipping, and if we're not shipping, we're not creating revenue. And so
Yes.
April was non-existent, and we have started to
And I'm
recover
sure,
from that.
Mike, demand has had to been affected as well for your product,
Sure.
just simply because sports in general have been greatly impacted.
No question. It's certain. Now, look, we're manufacturing every day. They're across the Murray right now, manufacturing scoreboards, and so we're doing that and installing product. But it's off dramatically from what it would have been. Sure.
So outside of the obvious revenue challenges, right, where revenue stops or revenue greatly impeded, what's been the biggest leadership challenge you both had to really deal with, either with yourself, with your teams, your organization, as you've faced, March and forward or January forward, Trey, for you?
I think for me, would it be, this is such a time that we never encountered before. So it's a brand new challenge. The brand new challenge is you don't know what's going on. As a leader, it's really hard to lead when you don't have the desired outcome. We always set goals for our company. We set goals individually within our team. When you don't, all those goals are crashing down, that you don't have a goal to set anymore because you don't know when the business is going to be back. We don't know even the business is going to survive or not, right? To be able to lead at the very beginning. I think one thing that is my team was looking at me for was, okay, our leader is definitely in fear at the very beginning because she's fear about the economy, fear about the uncertainty. I think the biggest challenge would be dealing with all those emotions of uncertainty myself first, to make sure that I know what our new desired outcome is for our company and organization, so I can communicate that with my team. I think that's the biggest thing, biggest challenge.
Trey, how'd you tackle that?
I would say it's definitely not easy. Even till today, I would say the effect of COVID is still happening.
Sure.
So it's still uncertainty. The biggest thing is to be transparent, to be able to let your team know that it is okay to be in fear. It is okay that we all are facing this unknown right now because no one knows. I feel like my team was looking at me not only for emotional support, but also reassurance that even we know the situation we're going through right now, it's not okay, but we're gonna get through it as a team together. And all the uncertainties, we're gonna figure it out together. I think that's the biggest thing, is to be transparent about my feelings and my challenges with them so we can solve this together as a team.
Wonderful.
good. That's
Absolutely.
good.
Mike,
Good.
what about you? Obviously manufacturing, when it stopped, had a dramatic impact. Some of your team was able to continue, some not. What were some of the biggest leadership challenges you all faced?
I think we continue to wrestle through this, and Trey, I'm not sure how much this impacts you or how related this is to your business, but the challenge that we've had, I think that's probably at the core for us, is balancing short-term, survival
Yes.
survival with, at the same time, positioning for long-term opportunity.
I agree.
And so if that makes sense. And so
Yes.
because at first it's like, Okay, we, quite frankly, we need cash. Okay, we're oxygen. We need cash, and so we most immediately go into a cash, say not just cash conservation, but a cash, find cash and store cash, and so that you're safe there. And we've shared this with our team. The flip side of that is then there are also a lot of opportunities on the back of this. And we know there will be opportunities, and we want to make sure that we are taking advantage and being positioned to take advantage of those opportunities on the back side of this. But you have to get there.
Yes.
And so the long-term, short-term balance, and I suppose that always exists, but in this case, because I've heard this described, I've read this described as a marathon, except you don't know when the finish line is. Okay? And
Right.
a marathon's really long, it's 26 miles, but you know that. But you know that. Well, this is a marathon that we've all started, we're all running together, and we don't know when it will be over. And so it's difficult to gauge some of that. So I think that's our struggle, is to balance that long-term, short-term mix.
So, Mike and Trey, talk a little bit about the impact you saw this have on your team. You know, Trey, you hit on it a little bit when they saw the fear in your eyes. You know, you had to address that with your team. You know,
Yes.
Mike, you know, how have you addressed? What's it been like dealing with your team, and how have they taken the uncertainty?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've got a terrific group, a really good team throughout the building. And I don't think we've done this nearly enough, by the way. But we had one particular instance where after some time there was a lot of questions, a lot of different things that people had on their minds, and literally we sent an email to the roster. I sent an email to our roster and said, ask the questions. Whatever the question is, there's no questions are off limits, and ask what is on your mind. We won't edit those and only choose the easy ones. There are no easy ones. And so ask the questions. And that's what we did, and we got questions. We got a lot of questions. Are we going to make it was one of the questions. Okay, that would have been one to
Yes.
edit out. We need to address that. And so we addressed it, and here is where we are. Yes, we plan to make it. We are planning for a future for our company. That is what we intend. And here are the steps that we're taking to help secure that and to thrive on the backside of it. No question was off limits, and we fielded a lot and addressed those as honestly as we possibly could. And we have not done nearly enough of that, by the way.
Mike, was that an email response? Was that an in-person meeting? How'd y'all handle that?
I literally sent an email to our roster. Here's what we're doing. We are going to get together. It may have been on a Thursday or Friday, I don't remember, but we're going to get together on our plant floor. Our manufacturing folks are there. They are there in person. The rest of the company, most of the company is remote, and so they were Zoom or Teams, whichever one it was. We brought them in virtually and stood around with the folks that were there in person and addressed those on the video that we had to. And again, haven't done that nearly enough, and we probably need to revisit that again, because there's a lot of questions.
Sure.
I bet some of those
Trey?
were difficult conversations too, and answers.
They are. No, they are difficult questions, and you know the truth of that is that it's okay to say I don't know, right? Because people can smell out if somebody's not being forthcoming, or look, this is not good. All right, this is there's no rah-rah speech here. Okay, this is the hand we've been dealt, and our management team spoke early on. Again, 2019 is the best year in the history of the company. We talked about it as a management team. We did not want I'm going to say legacy, sounds a little dramatic, but we don't want the legacy, if that's the right word, of this management team to be, well, we had a really good 2019. Okay, that's not good enough. Okay, or we had a really good January of 20. That's while Trey was already not having a good year.
Right.
That's not good enough. And so address what you don't know, say you don't know it, and but here's what we think, and here's what the steps that we're going to take.
Trey, what about you and your team, your team members? How did they react? How did you handle that with them?
We actually started remotely working from home. I can't remember, maybe the 20th of March, around that time already. And at the very beginning, when our customer are communicating with us about our orders and stuff, my team are copied on all those emails. So I knew that what I was going through, they were going through it together with me on that emotional part of ups and downs right now. So we always had our morning Zoom call, and we also had our afternoon Zoom call. So our team came together. What we really did was we normally before never had morning prayer and afternoon prayer. But what we started doing at that time was we started doing prayers in the morning and in the afternoon. And each of us took turns, and we just prayed at the very beginning of the fear and uncertainty part of it. After that period was done, is that our team just came together. We're like, okay, I have some great team. My team overseas and in the US all came to me understanding the financial struggles we're facing. They actually wrote me emails or text me personally or called and said, hey, would it help if we lowered our salary, if we took a pay cut? And that shows you about how loyal they are and how much proactive they are about helping this whole company, their team, survive. After that, we all sat together and just talked about, hey, we were so busy. Our business were growing every single day that there were so many things as a team we said we're going to work on our business. But we were so busy working in our business every single day, we didn't have time to attend to those strategic things that we're trying to do as a business and as a company. So we took that time and made the list of what are some of those things we were going to do before we never had time to do it. Some of the thing, number one, was to diversify our business and diversify in two different places. One was in platforms that we sell. Right now, our business is 95% brick and mortar stores, which COVID make it really, really difficult.
Sure.
The next thing was product. Majority of our product was home decor. We were not in any other line of categories in product. So the next thing was product category. So those were the two things. And that's what we worked through during COVID.
That's wonderful. And I love how you took advantage of a slow time, right? Your team was excited, engaged, and made the most of that.
I would say, I like to take credit of being a great leader sometimes to say that, I came up with all of those great ideas. My team all together came up with all those great ideas. And not only we had those great ideas, my team took it and ran with it.
Which is wonderful.
That's really good.
Trey, how many team members do you all have?
We have 4 in the U.S. We have 8 in overseas. So
interesting dynamics too between the international and U.S. based, right?
Definitely.
And Mike, how many team members does Sportable have?
We have about 50.
Okay.
Right around 50.
Sure. Mike, I want to follow up on a point you made on, you sent the email out and you asked for questions, right? And you got some very good questions, very pointed questions.
Right.
I guess this is, I don't know if it's a question or just a reflection that, Mike and Trey and me in my role, we're in the middle of all these decisions all day, every day, right? And you have access to a lot of information. But a lot of your team members, they can see the writing on the wall, but they're not in the middle of these conversations, right? When you all as a leadership team sat down and said, we are going to survive this, and here's, multiple avenues and ways to do that. So how valuable or how important is it to pause and share information?
I think that I think it's critical, and the session that I shared a moment ago where we opened up the building to ask a question, right? Ask any question you've got on your mind. We paused then, and quite frankly should have done it prior to that. We paused then and said, here is what we've done. And it was fairly specific, okay? It was, because look, people know the situation All right, people know that. I mean, it's just like with your team. You know the orders. You don't have to see a sales report in our business to know when business is good or business is not good. And so, and by the way, when your facility is not open, people can guess it's not good. And so it was not some big revelation. But what we did and the steps we had already taken and were taking, they didn't know that. How would they? And so we assume sometimes that people know what we know, and it's not because we're smarter, it's because we have access to information. And sometimes, Roy, I've heard you make the comment that in the absence of information, people fill in the blanks with negativity. And
it's human nature.
It's human nature. It's human nature. And so silence can be deafening. And so we broke the silence, and here's where we are. I literally, and this is as you said, I had notes while ago, Trey. This is my notes. I grabbed this. This is straight out of my email. I printed it this morning, and I wrote this back a long time ago. Okay, but it says literally what we know, and there's a category, and there's about a dozen things, and underneath it, what we don't know. And just bullet after one, what we know. We know that youth sports will return and be strong again at some point. We know the revenue impact of the 2008-09 recession. We know, and there's several things, and we know the steps that we've taken. And then there's the what we don't know. We don't know when each sports season will return. We don't know this and that. And it was kind of a clarifying. This is just, I don't think I even shared this with anybody, but this was my own personal clarity to deal in facts and try to level the emotion out of it and just deal in facts the best I can.
Trey and Mike, I'm hearing you make several points about, your team hearing from you, how important that is, about how clarity is very important not only to the leaders but all of your team members. And it made me think of a podcast I listened to this summer from Andy Stanley on leading during times of disruption. If you've ever listened to Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast, it's the June and July editions. And he talks about, basically makes 3 points. Number one is your voice is more important than your words. Number two, your presence is more important than your presentation. And number three, clarity is the next best thing to certainty.
I agree. I think, especially for me, English is not my first language. My team always say they have to understand Trey English. So I'm sure doing the fear and uncertainty part of it, I do not use the right word.
Me neither. But I didn't either. But okay.
My team were... it was about I think during the pandemic is definitely a time of you cannot be over communicating with your team. Not only not communicating with what your business needs, is to be able to know what their personal needs are. Because your team, like our team, not only they're worried about our business, they were worried about their family. Where are they going to have income? Are we going to survive? How are they going to provide? They needed to know, like what Mike's, one of the questions Mike got is, are we going to survive? The big thing is they wanted to know, am I going to be able to provide for my family, right? That's their concern. Is to be able to have those overall company-wide team conversations, but also have individual communication with each of your team and to know what their individual needs are. And to be able to communicate to them, sometimes it might be something like, hey, I don't know what I can do to fulfill that need, but just so you know, I'll do everything I can.
Wonderful. Mike, any reflections on those? Your voice is more important than your words, your presence more important than your presentation, and clarity is the next best thing to certainty.
No, that's the Andy Stanley material is terrific and it's really good. No, I mean, we talk about certainty. We are in uncertain times.
Definitely.
Okay, and we are uncertain times now as we get ready for November of 2020. We've been in uncertain times for the last 6 months or longer. So we will not be able to provide certainty. But here's where we are. Here's where we intend to go. Here are the steps that we're taking to position ourselves for that on the back end. That's where you have to be on it, and it doesn't need to be flowery language. It doesn't need to be polished. That's really irrelevant, quite frankly. And in fact, can almost be damaging because it's scripted and just feels artificial.
Sure. Well, I know we're running tight on time. Trey, is there one lesson, the biggest lesson you learned that you would share with the audience that you just think is maybe the most important thing that you learned through this process?
I would say I really probably learned two big things, kind of could have combined into one. So the big thing was the whole thing I talked about earlier is to designate, as business owner and leader of the company, to designate that time to work on the business, not in the business. To work on the strategic part of it rather than the operational part every day. It's very easy to do. Every single year, beginning of the year, and every quarter, I set goals of things we need to implement, but guess what? The business itself kind of taking over. So I'm spending time in the business. The next quarter I'm going, I need to spend time on the business. It just goes through that circle, right? Every single year. And this year is really the time I thought to myself, what if I have, for the last 2-3 years, spend more time on the things I already knew that we should have done as a business, which is diversified, develop more product lines, rather than waited till this happened, forced us to have to step up and do that. Like, how much different would our business to be in right now, and how comfortable my team would have been, you know? So that's one. The next thing is really to manage our business's financial part of it, to be very frugal, you know, to watch every penny of what we're spending on. Just because our business is growing doesn't mean our expense really have to grow as our business grows. I think my team all knows, they will laugh, probably hear this. I always tell them, I said, we will spend $10,000 on something that needs to be spent, but I am not willing to spend $5 on something it's not justified expense for our business. So that's something is, our business has always followed that model. That's probably one of the reasons we could have survived COVID, first part of COVID, the pandemic, without to really have to worry about if our people are going to get paid, if our business is going to have that time to grow new areas, but still being able to transition through. So,
absolutely,
that's good.
Mike, what was the one lesson, the greatest lesson for you that you'd share with our audience?
Similar to Trey's comments relative to being very deliberate with cash. I think that in this type of a climate, the reality that our resources are finite, but it screams, right? It screams that resources are not infinite. And it doesn't matter if it's cash, if it's personnel, whatever the situation, whatever the resource is, it's restricted. And that's always the case. In reality, that's always the case. But in good times, it gets disguised.
Exactly.
Okay, and so whether it's cash, I think that often the bigger resource is pursuing the wrong things, and the cost of time, the opportunity cost, the cost of chasing the wrong thing, and maybe catching it, maybe not, and so be really deliberate, be very, very deliberate, and you know, we've talked about core values among our executive team, leadership team. If your core values change in a global pandemic, then they weren't really core values. Okay, so know who you are at your core as a company, know who you are, and be very deliberate on how resources are applied.
Wonderful. Well, I know folks, we're out of time today. Trey, Mike, on behalf of Peel and Holland, Heartland Church, Journey Church, I just want to say thank you for spending your time with us today, sharing some of your reflections on what it takes leading through the dip, because you have both been tremendous leaders of both of your organizations, and I know you shared some great thoughts with our audience, and it's very much appreciated. For our audience, thanks for joining us today. Again, as you all have heard us say before, when a leader gets better, everybody gets better. So we appreciate you spending a few minutes thinking about how we can continue to improve as leaders. I want to say a special thanks to the Journey Church. They are providing us their production facilities today to present this Next Steps presentation. So Journey, we appreciate your partnership with that very much. I want to remind everybody about our next Steps Steps event, which will be December the 15th. Nate Williams from Heartland Church is hosting a conversation on building and keeping morale up during tough times. So that could be a great one as well as a follow-up to this conversation. So on behalf of Next Steps, thanks for attending and have a wonderful day. Thanks.